Welcome, guys. Welcome to Learn Extra Live. We're with Kathy, grade 12s. I hope you are ready for a fantastic show on the ear. Hey, Kathy.
On the ear. I was telling Katleho just now, very often we hear, but we don't listen. And that's the difference.
So it goes in and then it goes out again. So
it actually goes in and it moves around in there, but we don't take notice of it.
I hope you guys will listen today and not just hear us or watch us on the screen. And guys, remember to get hold of us, facebook.com/learnextra, and our Twitter handle is @learnextra. I hope you guys are ready and amped for an exciting show where we're going to listen with all we have. Thank you, Kathy.
Oh, I'm definitely taking on home. All right, people, the ear. Now, last week we did the eye. And remember, we started off with I see you and what happens. Remember, your eye is a sense organ. And you had photoreceptors, which means light receptors in the eye, in the retina, that convert the stimulus of light into an impulse. And the impulse is then passed via sensory neurons to the brain. And the brain to the area where sight is interpreted, which was the occipital lobe. Right. So that was the path of sight. And then if we had to move or we had to respond in some way, then the brain would cause that via sending an impulse via, or many impulses via the motor neurons so that we could respond to it. Whether it was just doing this, moving facial muscles, lifting your hand, doing whatever it was. Here we're looking at the ear. And remember, the ear has two functions. One, it's for hearing, clearly. And two, for balance and equilibrium. So the fact that you don't fall over, is because of the balance structures in your ears and also in your joints. They're called proprioreceptors, which prevent you from falling over. It helps you to balance. Now, looking at the ear, very important, we hear, and we listen. And there is a big difference between hearing and listening. Now, I know I sound like your moms and your grannies and your grandpas and your teachers who say, you don't listen to me, that kind of thing. But there is a very distinct difference between hearing and listening. We hear lots of sounds. So, for example, if you closed your eyes now, you would, and I'm going to keep quiet, what are you going to hear? You are going to hear noises outside. You're going to maybe hear somebody busy in the kitchen, maybe somebody sitting next to you laughing, whatever the case is, maybe a person next door shouting at a dog or a dog barking or a cat meowing or birds. You can hear all of those sounds. But your thalamus in your brain decides, no, irrelevant, not important. What is important is what you focus on. So for you, for example, if you're sitting studying, you can sit there and because you are so focused at reading what you are learning, you actually won't hear someone come into your bedroom or into the dining room where you're studying and tap you on, until they actually tap you on your shoulder and you say, what? The same as if you're sitting reading a message on your cell phone. You are looking at it, you're focused on that, and you don't hear somebody calling you. That is hearing, not listening. Listening is when you take note or cognizance of what the sounds coming into your ear mean, and you interpret that to understand what it means. Very important. Hearing, we hear everything. Listening, we have to be specific in what we want to take in and interpret. Alrighty, so here we go. If we look at the ears, the human ear, first of all, there are sense organ for hearing, which I've just gone through with you now. And what happens? The sound wave is going to come in. It's channeled into the ear, and inside the ear, we have mechanoreceptors. Now, why mechano? Mechano means mechanical. When we think of something that's mechanical, we think of a whole bunch of machines working and moving. All right, but they are moving. They're physically moving. And that's what a sound wave does. A sound wave is not just something. It actually does that. It is a wave that comes along. The higher the pits and the troughs, okay, the higher it is, the louder it is, okay? The smaller it is, the softer the sound is, okay? The pitch, loudness, softness, and then your pitch would be how close or how far apart the sounds are. Okay, so all of that, those waves are physical things that come crashing into our ears. All right, and then we're going to do the path of sound. But that is, eventually, it gets to the middle ear, and in the middle ear, we have mechanoreceptors. And what do? They are going to convert the stimulus of the sound wave into an impulse. The impulse, remember, is the language of the brain. So the impulse is now going to be carried via the sensory neurons to the region of hearing in the brain. Okay, where it's all going to be interpreted. Now, if you think of a brand new baby, a baby that's just been born, and you go and you clap your hands next to this baby here, or you drop something and it's loud, that baby's going to do this. Why? It hears the sound, but it doesn't know what it's hearing because it hasn't learned to interpret sound. And that's also, people, how we learn to speak. We learn to speak when we are little by imitating sound. We imitate what we hear. That's why little kids make noises like birds. I mean, especially if a little child is sitting out, or they spend a lot of time outside when they're like a year and a half old, and they hear birds going kurr, kurr, they will start making that sound. Or dogs barking, woof, woof. Cat, meow. They imitate the sound they hear. And that is why when children have a problem with their hearing, it immediately also impacts their words, their voice, the way they speak, and the way they formulate their words. Very important, because we learn to speak by imitation. All right, so that's, you never ever tell your kids, talk that baby talk. You know, that moronic, idiotic, oh, goo goo gaga, goo goo goo. Don't ever do that to your children. Okay, from the time that the first time you hold your children, Katlego, you're listening carefully, darling. From the first time you hold your baby and that baby pops out, you speak to that child properly, not like a half-wit.
Yeah, because then they're going to start imitating that, and then they're going to be slow.
Exactly. All right, so no goo gaga, proper words. Okay, mechanoreceptors in the ear convert the impulses, the wave to an impulse. The impulse via the sensory, remember it's carrying from the senses, sensory neuron, to the auditory center in the cerebral cortex. In other words, in the cerebrum. Okay, that's important. So it's the cerebrum or cerebral cortex, and that's where we figure it all out and interpret. But they're also organs of balance and equilibrium. Okay, now balance is so that you don't fall on your face or fall backwards onto your head. Okay, that's balance. Equilibrium is sort of, think of it as sideways, so you don't fall over this way or that way. But equilibrium also tells you where your head is in relation to everything else in your body, so that you are orientated. So balance and equilibrium. Okay, and those are at least proprioreceptors, and those proprioreceptors sit in all your joints and also in the inner ear, and they will take impulses and send them to the cerebellum. So not the cerebrum. Remember, we've done the brain, so you've got the cerebrum, and then you have the cerebellum. So there's your cerebrum is hearing, and your cerebellum is your balance and equilibrium. All right, people? Now, this diagram, you must, and I'm writing that in capital letters, learn. Because if you are asked questions on, or you are only given the outer ear, or you are given just the middle ear, or you are given, I must take this, I'm going to stick this in my pocket so I can use my hands. Okay? Outer ear, middle ear, inner ear. Okay? You can't see the inner ear. You can't see the middle ear, but a doctor uses a special little instrument. It's got like a funnel shape and a light, which with a magnifying glass, and they stick it here and they can see through the membrane into the middle ear. And the outer ear, well, that's the part we can see. Now, if we look at the outer ear, you've got this pinna. And that's this cartilage stuff that some people pierce like 5 million times, which I think must be so painful. I would never do that to myself. It's just too sore. Okay? But you've got the pinna. Here's a snippet of useless information. All right? So go tell people this when you get to school tomorrow, and I think you're really intelligent. Is that there's no person on this planet who has the same pinna. It's as unique as your fingerprints, and it's as unique as the iris of your eye. So your pinna, you know, in the future when they do a iris scan or an eye scan, and you see them gouge people's eyes out in those programs and stick them on a pencil in front of a detecting thing, you can also take their ears.
The ears. That's interesting.
And also, I'm going to have a sip of water. Also, your left and your right ear aren't the same either.
That's even more interesting. I thought
Exactly.
the same.
And if you recall, when we did genetics, we did the fact that the ears, if the lobe comes into the face, or whether the lobe curves up and then joins the face, is also genetic and it's inheritance. So it's a gene that determines whether your earlobe comes to your face like that or whether it goes up like that. Strange, hey? But cute. All right, so we start with the outer ear. And if we look at the outer ear, we're going to have the sound waves, and that's why we have the pinna. The pinna's there to direct the sound waves into and down the auditory canal. Okay? So you can also call it the ear canal, but it's the auditory canal. So the sound wave now gets channeled along here. And then you get to the tympanic membrane or the eardrum. So that part is classified as your outer ear. Then we go to the middle ear. I'm going to try and use a different color. We'll use purple. Okay, this part is the middle ear. Now, what do we see here? We see this structure. In that structure, it starts with the tympanic membrane or the eardrum. And that tympanic membrane is going to vibrate. So as the sound wave comes along, it's like, well, that's why it's called an eardrum. It's like wax that drum, that tympanic membrane, and the membrane vibrates. Sitting right against that membrane is the hammer, or you can call it the malleus. This is Latin. So the malleus, the incus, and the stapes are Latin terms. Hammer, anvil, and stirrup are your common terms, and you can use both. All right, so the hammer, anvil, and stirrup, those are little things called ossicles. So those little bones all together are called ossicles, and their job is to amplify the sound. So you've got the sound wave, eardrum vibrates, the hammer vibrates because it sits right against the eardrum. That causes that vibration, so the hammer vibrates against the anvil, and the anvil vibrates against the stirrup. So that vibration is passed on. Something else is with the outer ear and the middle ear, they are all filled with air. Okay, and we all know that air is far less dense than water or any other fluid. So The waves move easily in the air. If you've ever tried to speak to someone when you're in a swimming pool and you're next to each other, and you try and speak to them, the sounds are very different from when you are outside with your heads outside the water. Why? Because the wave has to travel through all this thick stuff, which would in that case be water. So, outer ear, middle ear, filled with air. Incredibly important. Why? Because these three little bones and that tympanic membrane, the eardrum, vibrate in air. That vibration is important to carry the sound wave and amplify the sound. All right? So it's filled with air, and we have this tube called the eustachian. Please make sure you know how to spell it. The eustachian tube, which links the ear to the throat. All right? Very important. That's why you go to an ENT, an ear, nose and throat specialist, because your nose drains into your throat, your ears drain into your throat. Okay, incredibly important that. You must know it. All right, so the eustachian tube, and what it does is it makes sure that the pressure in the middle ear and the outer ear are equal. Because if the pressure is equal, that drum can vibrate nicely. If the pressure is different on the outside or the inside, your eardrum doesn't vibrate properly. And what happens then is, if you've ever flown in an aeroplane, and when you're taking off, you feel that pressure on your ears, all right? And you can't really hear properly until you yawn, and we say our ears pop. Now, when you yawn, you open your jawbones, and you also stretch your neck a little bit, and in doing that, you open up the eustachian tube, which is this tube here, and you allow the pressure in the middle ear and the outer ear to equalize. And that's the popping sound you hear. It's as the eardrum moves quickly. That popping sound, you're adjusting your ear, your pressure on both sides. When you have a middle ear infection, this middle ear gets full of pus, and that causes pressure from the middle ear out, so against that poor little eardrum. And in some cases, that eardrum can burst. And that is pain personified. If you've ever tried to stick anything in your ear, you know how terribly, terribly sore it can be. So, another little snippet of useless information. You are not supposed to put anything into your ear that is smaller than your elbow. Now, we all know you can't put your elbow in your ear. So what does that tell you? Those little things that people stick in their ears to clean their ears and all kinds of things. No, no, no. Bad, bad, bad. Just make sure you clean the outside regularly so you don't have earwax stuck there. Okay, Katleho, we're going for a quick ad break.
Yeah, let's do that.
Cool.
Guys, make sure don't even insert your little pinky into your ear because it is smaller than your elbow. Have a fantastic break, guys. Bye. Welcome back from the break, guys. Remember to send in your questions and queries and comments on what Kathy is going through now on the ear, and we will be sure to answer most of them. As you know, we are always here for you. We are on your side. Over to you, Kathy.
Without a doubt, okay? Please, guys and girls, any questions that you have, anything you're not sure of, even if it's something that you can't remember if I did or didn't do, please ask, because if you ask, if it is something I have covered and someone's listened, what did I say? Didn't hear, they listened, then they can help you. If not, we will help you through it. Okay, so because Katleho will tell me question was answered, question wasn't answered, what questions are there, etc. Send them through. I'll try and get through all of them by the last 10 minutes, but I'm also trying to get through this whole process here. So, just going back here, remember, your outer ear and your middle ear filled with air. And why? So that those little ossicles, which are the three little bones, the hammer, anvil, and stirrup, can vibrate comfortably. All right. You know, when you go to a place where there's lots of loud music, let's say you've been at a party or a nightclub or something, and the music is very loud, when you walk away or you go to the toilet or wherever, the sound you can actually hear ringing in your ears. Okay, now that ringing sound is because the little tendons and the little ligaments and little muscles that hold the hammer, anvil, and stirrup, those three little bones together, they contract. Because if they don't, all that bouncing that happens because of the loud sound waves coming in are going to damage those little tiny, because those ossicles are the smallest bones in your body. Okay, and you don't want to damage them, because if they break, and then you're in big trouble. So the little muscles contract. And so you got that kind of vibrating going on. And when you walk away from the noise, or you go to the bathroom, or you leave the nightclub or whatever, and you go outside, those little bones are still bouncing because the muscles are holding. Now, you know, if you hold something, have you ever watched people when they're weightlifting, for example, and they go, and they start vibrating like that? That's exactly what's happening to your little muscles. So they are vibrating and all stressed, and the little bones are bouncing against each other, and that is what gives you that ringing sound in your ear. Okay, so, and you know what? We have the tympanic membrane. We call it tympania. When it goes, it makes a little noise. Alrighty, now, a eustachian tube, very important. It connects the middle ear to the throat, but what it also does is it maintains air pressure on this side and the left and the right side of the eardrum. And then we go into the inner ear. And this inner ear is incredibly important with regard to balance and equilibrium. Is in the semicircular canals, the utriculus and the sacculus. And this thing that looks like a modified snail, that's the cochlea, and that is our organ of hearing. Okay. Hearing and listening, by the way, both. Alrighty, so let's go through each one on its own. We look at the ossicles. Their main function is to amplify sound. You've got the outer ear, pinna, auditory canal, and your eardrum sits there. All right? The malleus, the incus, and the stapes are your Latin. We also call it the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. Now the stirrup, because if you look at it, it looks like this. So there, this little structure that you see right against there, that's the oval window, and then sitting on that oval window is the stirrup. Looks like what I've drawn there, in case you can't make it out on the brown. Right, so this is all inside the actual bone of your skull. So if I took, sounds awful, but if I took a saw, and I sliced through your head here, zhups, like that. And I took this part and I put it over there. And we looked into this part here, from the top in. You would actually see this structure. You'd see your middle ear, and you would then see your inner ear. And all of this sits in bone. Now, you all know how thick your bone of your cranium is. It's not thick. It's not like that thick. So when you look at this space here, it's not this size. It's actually only about that size. So you've got the smallest bones in the body in the middle ear, and then you've got just mushy stuff in the inner ear. All right, it's all made of membranes, really. So it's all in the bone. All right, we look at the path of sound, and I'm going to go, I actually want to, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of this off. All right, you'll have to go to YouTube. Apparently you can download all these lessons from YouTube. You'll be able to see what I wrote. And we're going to do the path of sound. You'll have that in your smart sheets that you've got, your smart notes. But I want you to look at the words and do it on a diagram. Okay, the same as I'm going to do here with you now. If you can do that, you'll get 100% for any question they give you on the path of sound. And for me, that should be an ideal 10-mark question. All right, so make sure you can answer it. It's easy, easy. Here we go. Let's get, I think, ladies, we're going to go the orange route today. Okay, here we go. Sound wave comes in. Okay, sound wave is then channeled by the pinna into the auditory or ear canal. Okay. It gets to the eardrum or the tympanic membrane. It depends on what your teachers want, but both are correct. So I've put eardrum and in brackets tympanic membrane. So what happens is the membrane vibrates. Vibrates. Because of the sound wave banging against it. That vibration is passed on into the middle ear. Okay? In the middle ear, we have the ossicles. And the ossicles amplify sound. They make it better. It's the difference between listening to, one of those little transistor radios, the ones that your great-grandpa used to have, those little things like this. In fact, sometimes they were this big, but it's a radio. And it only had one speaker, and the sound wasn't very good. Okay. Versus listening to the same sound on a stereo music center. Can't call it a hi-fi. A music center. So you listen to it in stereo with surround sound. That is proper sound. Versus listening to it with one speaker. Okay, now that is what you have here. You amplify the sound and you put it through subwoofers and blah, blah, blah. My son knows all this stuff because he has all this stuff in his car. When he comes home, I can actually hear him bouncing down the road like a K away. But that's what you have. They amplify the sound. So that's what these three little bones do, but in a very simple way so that your brain doesn't get compounded by all that music. So the three ossicles amplify the sound, and it passes from the eardrum to the hammer, to the anvil, and to the stirrup. Okay? You know what? Let's number this. So we've got the sound waves. It's number 1. Okay? Then they get channeled by the pinna. They pass down the auditory canal. Okay? And they cause the eardrum to vibrate. The vibration passes from the outer ear to the middle ear via the eardrum, and it goes to the three ossicles. The ossicles amplify sound. Now, the ossicles are made up of the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. Okay, you see why I'm numbering it? Because that's the order in which you must put this. Okay? The stirrup vibrates, and that vibration is passed on to the oval window. Okay? Now, I just want to get this block away. This window there is oval, and this one is round. Now think about this. O comes before R in the alphabet. So if O comes before R, the oval window is on top, the round window is just below it. And that's how you remember it, people. So sound wave passes, the stirrup vibrates against the oval window, all right? And in vibrating against the oval window, that vibration passes into the perilymph and then the endolymph. Now, I'm going to use yellow. Let's get yellow here. And I'm going to do everything in yellow. I need to color, but I can't do it in... All right, let's try green. Okay. Everything that I'm coloring in green, people, is endolymph. And everything... Okay, let me just check with my producer. Can you see that, Belinda? Okay. Okay. Everything that's in green is endolymph. Okay? And it's thicker and it's like a gel. And everything that's around it is your perilymph. And the perilymph is slightly, it's got a different consistency. So the sound wave will go from the oval window, that vibration is passed into, from the perilymph, let's get our color back here, from the perilymph, okay, 8, that's oval window, into the perilymph, which is 10, okay? And from the perilymph, it's transmitted all along here, from the perilymph to the endolymph in the cochlea. So perilymph to the endolymph in the cochlea. Now, in the cochlea, we have very, very special little hair cells. Everything in the ear is to do with hair cells. Balance and equilibrium as well as hearing. And here we're talking about hearing. So we have these little hair cells. They're little cells with little hairs that stick up. And these little hairs are there. And as this endolymph floats around and knocks these little hairs and pushes them down and bends them, that is your stimulus. Now, the organs of Corti that are in the cochlea, okay, convert. They are your mechanoreceptors, and they will convert the sound stimulus into, come on, and what? An impulse. Okay. Once we have that impulse, it will pass from the mechanoreceptors, which are the organs of Corti, okay, to the auditory nerve. And the auditory nerve will take that impulse via sensory neurons to the auditory center in the cerebrum, or the cerebral cortex. Okay, and that's where we'll interpret the sound that we heard, the sound that we listened to. Very often, the sound that we heard is interpreted, but the thalamus and all other structures in our brain will say, not important. Okay, what is important is what we are focusing on, what we are concentrating on, and that is what we will hear and listen to. All right, so everything I've numbered here, that's the path of sound. And remember, in the cochlea, you have the organs of Corti. Organs as in heart, lungs, kidneys are organs. Organs of, with a capital letter, Corti, C-O-R-T-I. Okay, make sure you know this, people. If you can do it on a diagram, I promise you, you've got it. That perfect marks.
So, Kathy, how does the sound damage the eardrum? Noxipedia asked. So,
Okay.
how do the waves of sound?
When sound waves, how can I explain this to you? If you've ever been to the sea, okay, and you walk from the beach into the waves, sometimes the waves are little waves, okay, but when the tide is coming in, those waves can get huge, and they bang you all over the show. All right, those are the waves that tumble you and you end up with half the ocean in your costume when you get up, okay? And with us girls, your costume sitting around your neck and that kind of thing. Or if it's around your neck, that's good because it could be floating way away from you as well. All right, sound waves are exactly the same as those waves that we have in the ocean. So if somebody is humming or talking softly, and they just, it's a nice, easy sound. It's coming in like that. It's like our little waves when we go for a walk and the sea's pulling out, and you know, that's the kind
Smooth.
of, Yes, it's smooth and the waves are small and etc. When you listen to really loud music, it is like this huge mammoth, you know those waves that the people, when they're surfing and they go into this tunnel as the water curls over them.
Yeah, I've seen those. Like,
yeah. Now, it's like having one of those bash you. Okay, and that's what you're doing to your eardrum. So listening to really loud music, those little muscles and the little ligaments that hold the bones together, they are working incredibly hard to hold those bones in place. Eventually, they can't anymore. And the stress is just too much. And as they relax, those little bones crash. Okay? And that is bad, because then you really have a problem hearing for the rest of your life. But the eardrum, when there's a really loud noise, like if somebody hits you very hard on your ear, that's what they do in wrestling.
yeah.
You know, have you seen kachetso when they go whack and they whack the guy like this on both
And then
sides
it like
of his head?
zings in your ear.
Well, dish like that. Now, what you're doing there is you're compressing air, okay, and the noise, and that bursts the eardrum, but it's the pressure that bursts it there. But really loud sounds also create immense pressure on that little membrane, and it can't vibrate. So what happens is it just bursts. It's like taking a hammer and hitting a drum. If you hit that drum hard, you can actually split the skin of the top of the drum and you break it. So that's how the eardrum breaks.
Okay.
And if the eardrum's broken, it can't vibrate, which means it can't pass the sound wave, physically pass the sound wave from the vibrating membrane to the three ossicles. So the sound wave can't be amplified, so it can't be transmitted into the middle ear. To the inner ear. So you then can't hear properly.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Alrighty. Okay, so we've done the path of sound. I've gone through that with you. You'll have all of this. It'll be in your notes. Now, balance and equilibrium. How are we going for time?
I think we must go to an ad break.
Should we go for a quick
Yes,
ad break
let's
and then
do
we can
that.
start equilibrium?
Yeah.
Cool.
So guys, see you after the break. Make sure that you get energized and ready for the second part. Thank you. Bye. Welcome back, Mindsetters. Hope you guys are ready for the next part. I see all your questions are flowing in, and it's fantastic because you guys are also helping each other. I love how interactive you grade 12s are. It really is inspiring. So well done for that. And guys, remember, please watch Kashifa's and Anissa's little video on YouTube of last week when we reached the 10,000 mark. Kathy was there too, so she can tell you what a party they had. I mean, I wasn't here, but that video looks fantastic. So keep watching it, guys. Keep supporting them and keep asking questions. Over to you, Kathy.
Thanks. Katleho's given me some questions that you guys have come back with. Okay, actually very good questions and very worthy. What I'm going to do is this. We'll get to balance and equilibrium, which is the second function of the ear. What we're looking at here is this. There's the pinna, you've got the auditory canal, you've got the eardrum, and then you go into your middle ear. Okay, you have the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup, oval window, and the round window. Okay. One of the questions was, why do we have wax here in the auditory canal? Okay. Auditory canal. Why do we have wax there? Well, we've actually, if you look into the ear, you'll also see that they're little hairs. Okay? Now listen to how cute this is. This is how awesome our body is. You've got these little hairs. When guys get older, like really old, they have hair growing out of their ears. And when they go for haircuts, they should also actually trim their hair in their ears. Now, those hairs are there, and they sort of catch any bugs and any dust and anything that doesn't belong in the ear. Because remember, you want to make sure that nothing can harm or hurt the eardrum. Okay? The eardrum, or we call it the tympanic membrane. Okay? We don't want anything to harm it. So what happens? The little hairs are there, and they catch anything that is foreign that doesn't belong there. All right, that's number one. But now it doesn't help if a bug, a little tiny bug or dust or a dust mite or whatever is sitting here in your ear over there. How are you going to get it out? So all the way along here, we have very special little glands. They're tiny little glands. They're like modified sweat glands. And they secrete a fluid. And that fluid is what you have, or what we call earwax. Okay, it's a waxy fluid called cerumen. It's earwax. So cerumen, earwax. And if you've ever tasted, as revolting as that sounds, and I can see Katlecho's face here is just too gorgeous, okay? But that earwax has got a bitter taste to it. And the problem is that with it being so bitter, it actually isn't, it's apart from being an antiseptic and almost a way to sweep out the rubbish out of your ear canal, it also contains an anti-insect repellent stuff. Okay, for lack of a better word. But it will repel anything. That's why you don't ever, even if you're sleeping in the veld and you're camping, you don't sit with insects stuffed inside your ear, because it's a nice dark hole that they can go into. And then anything, now remember you've got this cerumen that's been also being released, and anything that's trapped in the hairs will roll out or move out with the earwax. Okay, when you bath and shower and whatever, it then gets even more wet, and it sort of like oozes its way out of your ears. When you take I can't call them what they're supposed to be called, but those things that my director's just told me I can use the word earbuds. Those earbuds, okay, and you've got this little plastic thing with the little cotton wool things on the ends, and you go and you shove. What you're doing is you're shoving all the wax into a boliki over here. So instead of it being able to sort of come out and drain out of the ear, you shove it back. And that little ball of wax now dries out. And then the next little layer of wax rolls onto it. And the next one, until you end up with this ball of stuff in your ear and you can't hear, because the sound wave can't get past the wax. Okay, do not stick things in your ears. Just clean the outside with your finger and a towel. So it's nice and big. You're just cleaning here all the time. Nothing worse, guys, and the guys are big culprits of this. When a girl's sitting, come on, Katlecho, you must know this. And you're sitting next to this guy, and you look lovingly into his face, and all you can see is this ball of wax stuck in the
brown thing.
You actually want to go, bleh.
That's disgusting.
Guys, please,
what a
not. Okay, so that's the first question. That's how wax is, that's where wax is, that's where it's found, and do not stick things into your ear. You clean here. That's it. You never shove things in, because you end up with a wax ball, and you then have to go to the doctor and have it syringed out. Okay. The next question was, why do we have air in the middle ear? And I think I explained this to you. It is so that on both sides of this tympanic membrane, that the air pressure is equal. So you've got your air pressure this side and your air pressure that side, and they must be equal. Otherwise, you will cause the eardrum to bulge. And if it bulges either outwards or inwards, you can cause it to burst. And that is incredibly sore. And that's also why when it's not good to fly when you have an ear infection or you have flu. They won't allow air hostesses or pilots to fly when they have colds or flu. Why? Because they can't risk them bursting their eardrum, because when you get a cold or you get flu, your glands also swell. That shuts that tympanic membrane, which means you can't equalize pressure. And if you can't equalize pressure, and you're like 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 kilometers up there, pressure's a bit of a problem. You end up bursting that eardrum, and it is pain. It is incredibly sore because you've got a lot of nerves here in this region to stop things from getting to your eardrum. It's your body's way of making sure you don't allow anything to get that close to your eardrum. Okay, so the air here and the air here, we want that pressure to be equal so the eardrum can vibrate properly. Okay, what was the third question?
About the round window.
Okay, here we have the round window, which is now to get it into the middle ear and the cochlea, and we have the oval window. So round window and the oval window. Okay, it's actually called the fenestra rotunda. Fenestra, Latin for window. Rotunda, round. Okay, so your round window, oval window, the round window, remember, takes the sound to the perilymph, which will then transfer the sound into the endolymph of the inner ear. Okay? Now the sound goes all the way around that little snail shell in the cochlea, and it goes round and round and round, and the organs of Corti are converting, the mechanoreceptors are converting the sound wave into an impulse, all right? And that's being sent via the auditory canal, via the sensory neurons to the hearing, the area for hearing in the cerebral cortex. But there's excess sound. All the sound waves don't get converted, okay, because they flow from the perilymph to the endolymph out to the perilymph again. So what happens is the end of the tube ends here at the oval window. So any excess sound waves that were not converted into an impulse, there's excess. And they pass, those little wavy things, the excess sound, passes from the oval window, from the, what did I do here? Sorry, I'm an idiot. This is the oval window because O comes before. Sorry. So you've got the round, that's why I'm making this round, I'm making this oval, and I write round there. I'm sorry, so it's been 3 hours. You're going to have to forgive me. So oval window, round window. And what happens is the excess sound comes here through the round window, and it passes out through the throat. So, theoretically, if you were to put somebody into a soundproof room and seal their faces exactly like this, and someone let off a shout or something in this person's ear in a soundproof room on that side, and they opened their mouth, you would be able to hear that sound here. Okay, because it would pass through the round window and down the eustachian tube into the throat, theoretically. The reason we have that is to prevent an echo. Now, you know when your ears are blocked, okay, and you're not hearing properly, and you almost, it's like you can hear your own voice, or when you stick earplugs in your ears because you don't want people to interrupt you while you're studying, and when you're talking, it's like you can hear an echo. Now that's it. This oval the round window, the sound moving through the round window is so that you don't hear an echo. The liquid in your ear. First of all, you have the cerumen, which is the waxy, very thin, waxy or thick liquid, but thin wax, okay, that you have here in the auditory canal to help get rid of anything that is bad in the ear, so it flushes it out, okay? Then you've got the perilymph and the endolymph. The perilymph is the area, it's the liquid that fills the area. If this is the bone, okay, please, I'm really simplifying the diagram, but there is bone, and here is bone. Okay, now remember this is a canal, all right? So there's bone and there's bone. And then we've got, in fact, let's use another color. You've got your cochlea. So this is the cochlea. So that's the cochlea. It's the actual cochlea structure. Okay? And you've got the bone. So between the bone and the cochlea, you've got fluid. And that fluid is to protect the cochlea so it doesn't get damaged when it bounces against the bone when you're moving around and doing whatever you're doing. That is your peri-lymph. Remember, peri is on top, checking out, on top. So peri-lymph is between the bone and the actual cochlea structure. All right? Now, inside the cochlea, we have our fluid. And that fluid there is the endolymph. All right? Now, also sitting inside the cochlea, we have little cells, and those little cells have little hairs. We call them hair cells. What kind of hair cells? They are our organs of Corti. And what is their function? They are our mechanoreceptors, and they'll convert the sound wave into an impulse. So as this wave comes along, it's going to change. It changes the fluid and the pressure. So it will push this membrane down, or the membrane will move up. And when the membrane moves up, those little organs of Corti go bounce, bounce, bounce. And as the little hair cells bend against the top part of the canal, they bend a lot, the sound is loud. And we perceive it like that. If they tickle, 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 then we know it's a soft sound, because that tickling changes the stimulus into an impulse, but the impulses are gentle. It's not hard. So the harder those little hairs bounce, the more they bend, the louder the sound. The softer they tickle, the softer the sound. And that is what the fluids do. Alrighty, just quickly, we've got very little time here. I just want to do the balance and equilibrium. Okay, it's controlled by the semicircular canals. Those were those three things that did this. The utriculus and the sacculus. Okay, that structure, not the one that looks like the little snail shell. The one that looks like a little snail shell is the cochlea for hearing. Okay, this part, the semicircular canals, the utriculus and the sacculus, that is for balance and equilibrium. What happens there, you've got, again, little hair cells, and as they bounce and touch and move, etc., because remember, this is also filled with endolymph, okay, and it's also got perilymph all the way around it between this and the bone, all right? As those little hair cells bend, that's what tells you where your head is in relation to your body, the semicircular canals, and where your head is in relation to gravity. So it distinguishes that. And people that are able to distinguish that clearly end up becoming the most amazing gymnasts and tumblers, because they know where their head is in relation to their body in relation to gravity. All right. Over to you, darling.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you for a fantastic show. Thank you, Mindsetters.
Thank you for being so sweet.
Oh, thank you, Kathy.
And so motivating, I admit.
Yes, I love the show. So cool. I really am motivated by you guys as well. So thank you very much for a lovely show. Remember to learn more, learn extra. See you next week, guys.
Cheers,
Bye.
guys. Bye.